I will call the August 8th, 2017 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic items. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a common council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All items require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, August 22nd at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment at that time on the item, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, September 12th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be afforded the opportunity to speak at that time. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to this board for discussion and action. Please call the roll.
Haas,
Here.
Krause,
Here.
Kaczynski,
Here.
Schneider,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
Christensen, absent.
First item on this afternoon's agenda is approval of prior meeting minutes. Any comments, questions, concerns, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Haas,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Kaczynski,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye. Which then brings us to the public comment section of this afternoon's meeting. This board has adopted a public participation policy which provides 15 minutes for general public comment on a first-come, first-served basis. Citizens must provide name and address and may speak on matters related to traffic issues within the authority of this board. Statements should be addressed to the board members and not to city staff or other persons. Items that are on the agenda should be addressed at the time the item is read and not during the period for public comment. Statements are limited to 3 minutes, and citizens may only provide comment one time unless special permission is granted by the board. Is there anyone that wishes to avail themselves of that opportunity?
Is this the time to comment on your proposal for Oregon Street?
No, that would be during the agenda item. Which then brings us to new business, which includes that, which is item number 1. A request for no parking on Oregon Street, west side from 16th Ave to 50 feet south. Current condition being unrestricted parking west side south of 16th Ave. No parking west side from 16th Ave to 19 feet north. 15-minute parking west side from 19 feet north of 16th Ave to 91 feet north of 16th Ave between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m.
All right, so this is a request from a resident that travels this way to work, and there was a crash there on the 26th, so that prompted her to call and ask about this. Now, currently, there's no parking, as you just read, from basically, there's a sign like right about here to the corner, and that's also where the bus stop is, so we do have some issues with the bus stopping here as well. We do currently have an ordinance where you can't park within 50 feet of a bus stop, so really this 15-minute parking that's over here is in that zone. However, I know that that's high demand parking for Tamara's here. So the incident that occurred, one of the complaints that was brought up is it's hard to see around these corners, which some of it's unavoidable because these are older buildings that are built right up to the corner. We wouldn't allow that anymore, but that's just how a lot of these older buildings are in downtown. So the idea was to clear this 50 feet here, and then we could possibly move that bus stop from there to over here. And it would, clear a few spots here, and then the bus could pull along there. So that's what the proposal is. That would clear this corner, and then, you have that footage here that's already clear, so it'd give a little bit of better vision. Now, granted, it's not gonna improve the sight lines around the buildings, but it would give you a better opportunity to see the traffic, at least coming from the south here.
Would people be allowed to park where the bus stop currently is then, or if it's moved?
Yes. Well, you currently, technically, you're not supposed to park, and this is 15-minute parking here currently. So I know that the bus operators do have problem from time to time trying to get over, if there's a lot of vehicles there. So that was the thought, was if we moved it over here, that would clear the corner and also allow better access for the bus to stop. Now this building's, it's currently vacant, but I don't know what the intentions are for it. I know they do have, there's a small parking lot back here. There really isn't a whole lot of parking in this area. I believe, from what I've seen, I've went out there a few mornings, and I think it's Tamara's employees that are currently parking here, but they also park, down along here as well.
Pretty hard to find a parking spot sometimes. We go
Right.
3 or 4 times a month.
Yep.
Is there a possibility to put the bus parking a little farther up, or does it have to be on the corner? Or could it be 50 feet further up?
It's a possibility.
Because there would be the spot when the bus is there that might cause a blind spot.
Right. Yeah, that's a possibility. We could
Suggesting it be up
Yeah, just a little
where it
ways
is
up.
right
further
now.
this way.
In front of that house?
Yeah, maybe
Nope,
in front of the
not
first
quite.
or second house. Just to get it off that corner if somebody's trying to turn onto the street.
Yeah, right about where you are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
People should be able to see around that bus stop.
Anyone else have any immediate questions? Otherwise, I'm going to
I was just
let Mr.
wondering-
Mugerauer talk, right? Larry?
But that,
Yeah.
that's great. If you wanna
Okay.
move the bus, I'm all for that. I'm talking about the proposed when you're gonna put in a bike path, when you redo the road next year,
Oh.
and take away all my parking. That I'm not excited about.
Well, that's a non-agenda item, so I misunderstood what you said first.
If
Based,
you're gonna move the bus away from us, I'm all for that. That'd be
Okay.
great.
well, given that we've already gone through the public comment section, can I impose upon you to actually bring that forward at a future meeting? Because those are two issues that aren't actually tied together at this point, anyway, so.
I
it's
thought the
technically-
letter that we got was regarding the proposal.
Well, we're gonna be
It's
talking about the
n-
council, at the council meeting tonight about Oregon Street, so that would be probably the appropriate time to have public comment.
Unless
Yeah.
this is what you sent us, but you sent us a letter saying,
Well,
4
this,
o'clock today they'd be discussing.
not the bike lane issue, though. That's on Wisconsin
Bike lane
Street.
issue what was in the letter.
Bike lane is-
The bike lanes are that's a separate agenda item. That's for Wisconsin Street.
No, they're talking about doing it for Oregon Street when they redo it next year.
Right, but yeah, the only thing we're talking about on Oregon Street right now is the parking.
That's great. If you wanna move the bus to that house, it'd be even better.
I don't know I'm not sure what,
Yeah, I'm a little,
well, why don't you come up to the podium so we can at least get your name and what your concern is
Sure.
with the parking, so we can at least enter that in the record.
Larry Mugrower. Business address is 1529 Oregon and also 610 Oregon, both Tamara's buildings. We were concerned, I didn't even read that this was what you're talking about. This would be great to get that bus out in front of our building, because the people that sit there sometimes on our benches aren't the nicest people. So if you move it down half a block, that would be great. My real concern is if we're going to redo Oregon and get rid of half the parking on that street by putting in a bike lane, it's gonna mess up all the businesses on Oregon. There's already not enough parking on Oregon Street. When we have events, people park 4 blocks away to come in there. When we have some of our big events, we literally have the line out the door for like 4 or 5 hours sometimes. And there's not enough parking now, so I don't wanna see half of the street be pulled away with a bike lane that, I just drove down Main Street now and there's that nice bike lane they put in there and there's never a bike on it. So I'm not sure where the idea of the bike lane came, but I definitely object to wasting part of Oregon's parking space to put in a bike lane. That was-
I just had a question for you. So you own the Tamara's building?
Yes,
And then do you own this one or the other
I
one
own
too, or
610
no?
Oregon, that was our original Tamara's building, way down on the other end,
Oh, that's
just
okay.
across the bridge.
Okay, so that way, okay. This one you don't own though?
No, that one, I don't know who owns that.
Okay.
It's been 3 or 4 or 5 places in the 4 years we've been in that
All right.
building.
Yeah, I know, the citizen that called was asking for, the park on this corner, and they also wanted more on this corner, but I, knowing that how how much demand
Yeah,
there's
I don't wanna
for
lose any
here.
parking, I'll guarantee you that. We don't have enough as it is.
So that's why I didn't propose down
But
here.
we get people
I know you-
doing dumb things and they'll park on 16th on this side when you can't. You can only park right up to our driveway there.
Okay,
But once you go past where that car is, that's actually no parking on that side of the street all the way down 16th. But there'll be people that'll park there and then our neighbors get mad and we put signs on the door, please don't park here, but people, park stupid.
okay. So if we
But
leave,
moving the bus stop to the other side of that bar would be great. Because
Okay.
I think that would help a lot of visibility too. Because when you're trying to see around that bus when it's there, when you want to pull out and they're loading, you can't see anything.
well, good, that
You're like
sounds
halfway
like,
out in the intersection before you can tell if you can go or not.
that sounds like if we move, that'll solve two issues potentially.
Even though it wasn't your intent to,
Yeah, I mean,
got here
that's-
under somewhat mixed circumstances, I think your input was valuable.
Yeah,
on
I
this,
think, and I don't,
Sorry.
my knowledge of Oregon Street, just to address that, like, Mr. Krause said, I know they're gonna address some of that at the council meeting. I haven't seen a proposal that has bike lanes on Oregon Street.
We got something in the mail from the city saying that when they redo the road next year, because next summer they're redoing Oregon from 8th to 16th,
Yeah,
are proposing to put in a bike lane on one side and eliminate parking on one side.
If that is in fact the case, Jim, I'd like one kick at that can.
I'm not aware of that, because
Yeah.
we did talk about Oregon Street at our last board meeting, and the proposal was to potentially, narrow the street, but I don't think bike lanes were a part of that from what I'm,
Well, they said it wasn't in the bike plan.
right.
Come back to the council meeting tonight and you'll get a really good answer.
I'm gonna find that letter that we got.
Yeah, bring it with you, Larry, absolutely. Does anyone else have any questions of Mr. Collins? Do we actually need to amend this, Jim, to reflect the moving of the?
Yeah, if you
stop?
wanna move it, then yes, I would say.
So we do need to amend it to move the bus stop. That being said, is there anyone that wishes to offer that as an amendment?
Motion to amend that to move the bus stop further down. Second.
Anyone with any questions for Mr. Krause on his amendment? And call the roll as it relates to the amendment.
Haas.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Sisitsky.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
Okay, so now we sit before us with a piece of business to make the adjustments as noted, as far as no parking goes, and to move the bus stop. Anyone with questions? The amended motion. Seeing none, call the roll.
Haas.
Aye.
Krause.
Aye.
Sisitsky.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
Item number 2, a request for no parking on South Park Ave, both sides from Main Street east to its terminus, current condition being no parking restriction.
Okay, this is one we had tabled at an earlier meeting, but did have a chance to talk to Randy Davis, their current business is Paul Davis, which are in this building. And he did say, a couple of their employees do park there because it's closer to their door, but, I don't know how long they're gonna be there. They're currently trying to sell that building, but he said as far as they're concerned, that this isn't an issue, that they don't have to park there. I mean, they got the parking lot on the other side. And I explained to him with this being a major ingress and egress for the arena that we really would like to clear parking there, and he said he completely understood and supported that. So, that's the main business we were concerned with, just to see if that was any issue or not. So with removing this parking down here, then it'll make this area completely clear of parked vehicles. So then, whether there's an event or not, then vehicles will be able to get in and out of there easily.
Anyone
Where's their
with-
parking lot come off 14th? Or?
You mean this business? They have
Yeah.
a parking lot right here, if I can get this to go around. It's right in front of their building, just south of their building. If I can get this to be there.
Might it be a better use, Jim, to, rather than make that no parking, make it no stopping, standing, waiting, given what's gonna wind up on the other side of that street in the near future?
Well, I guess technically if we make it no parking, they really shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Well, oversimplify,
Yeah.
But given that it's actually a dead-end street, I see the potential for problems. Can't obviously exit traffic out the east side unless we put water wings on them. But I think it may be a better issue at that point. Again, I could be the Lone Ranger on that one, but anybody have any input on that issue?
Could always be done.
Well, it could, but two birds, one stone, essentially, at this point. Again, I'm happy to vote for it as is. I was just trying to alleviate some work potentially in the future, should it become an issue. Because arguably, we're no worse off.
Could add no standing.
Again, I think it's a better use of our time as a board and the poor guy at Department of Public Works that's got to put those signs up here in the next couple of weeks, should we move forward with this, to put them up once as opposed
So
to.
you just put up no parking, standing, stop.
No parking, stopping, standing, or waiting, much like we've done in a couple spots around town where
Makes
there's.
sense, it's more efficient.
It is, and again, I mean, I don't think you have to have a crystal ball to tell that when there's an event, you're gonna have cars stopped everywhere on that street, either picking or dropping people. So, I mean, envision the Rush Center in Green Bay, if you will. It's all pedestrian traffic around there. They don't let cars anywhere near it, the front of the building. And I think that's the safest option, because after the final buzzer on a game, there's gonna be a couple thousand people pouring out.
So that's gonna be like a planned walkway down there?
I don't know if it is or not, but I think we gotta prepare for that. That's what I'd like to see happen there. That's not up to me, but if you've got, 10, 20, 30 cars, and I think that's conservative, trying to get down there to pick people up or drop people off, you're gonna wind up with a problem. Car versus pedestrian or pedestrians.
Yeah, and I'd be fine with that. I think it's fine.
Well, then I'm gonna move that we amend this to a request for no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting on South Park Ave, both sides from Main Street East to its terminus.
Second it.
Call the roll on, well, I'm sorry, does anyone have any additional input or questions on the amendment? No. Call the roll on the amendment.
Haas,
Aye.
Krausy,
Aye.
Kuzinski,
Aye.
Weinschneider,
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
Back then to the now amended motion. Okay, any further questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, call the roll on the amended motion.
Haas,
Aye.
Krausy,
Aye.
Kuzinski,
Aye.
Weinschneider,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
carried 5-0.
Item 3, a request for bike lanes on Ohio-Wisconsin Street, both sides, from the south side of the bridge to Algoma Boulevard. Current condition, no parking both sides from the Fox River to Union Ave.
Okay, so this route, it's part of the 2011 council-approved bike and pedestrian plan. We've, as far as an implementation standpoint, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee put together, their priorities for this year, and we've been working through those. We've got, most of what the sharrows and signage that they wanted done. As this board's aware, we did the West Haven bike lanes earlier this summer. So this was the last of those prioritized items they had on their agenda for this year. So what this is Wisconsin Street was reconstructed a few years ago. When it was reconstructed, it was built at 54 feet wide, and it was done in preparation for eventual installation of 2 4-foot bike lanes, which is still okay. That was the standard at the time. Currently we do 5 if we can make it work, but 4 works as well. But if you see here, that's the reason there's these curb cutouts that kind of dead end into the street. So there's one there, and then there are also 2 like that on the other side of the bridge. So that that was the reason it was built like that. So at 54 feet, that would be, it would give you two, so this lane's right currently about 15 feet and this one's 11. So it would give you two 11-foot lanes, and then you'd have a 4-foot bike lane going from here up to then connect to the bike lanes at High and Algoma, and then vice versa. So we would start them off, you know, around this area and then go down to Algoma.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Collins? If not, okay, that's exactly what I was gonna ask you to do, Jim. Looking north across the bridge, I actually just drove on this just a few minutes ago on my way here. If you're in that right lane, Jim, and you come up, you've got that little curve to navigate to get across the bridge. My fear, given that it's already confined space, is that with that little twist right there, you're gonna have someone in a bike lane right there that's gonna come out just a little bit further than they otherwise normally would. And if you're in that right lane in a car, you've got nowhere to go if you've got someone on your left.
I don't know.
You're either,
People follow the speed limits. on
well,
the
and that's, yes,
street.
but that's a different issue, but yes, you're absolutely right. So, I'm a little leery about putting a bike lane across a bridge for that very reason. Because there's not an opportunity, there's no open zone as the terminology would.
Something I've watched over and over too, when people are heading north and they're in the left-hand lane, they always cut that corner a little short. In other words, they don't go wide enough to the left, and so they're crowding the guy in the right lane.
Oh, you mean when they come off of?
When they come
Oh.
off of Ohio and they're heading north onto the bridge. There's a lot of people cut that a little short, especially if the trailers or anything longer. The back end is usually over the center line there, because they don't belly out enough. And people in the right lane are being squeezed. Just to add that to the bike lane thing, with the elevation, yeah, you're kind of trapped.
Like I bike across there occasionally, you know, coming from the south, and then I'll go to the wheel wash. And I don't know if I'd feel comfortable biking on the street there. I always take the sidewalk.
Yeah, which, you know, even if we put bike lanes, I mean, you'd still have that as an option. I mean, it's still.
Well, but putting a bike lane would invite people to
Right.
use it.
Yep.
It's a
This
distance.
makes sense, because it joins up to the north with Algoma and High. I mean, it's a good idea, but is it a safe one?
Right, exactly, and I would argue it's not.
Is it a pretty heavily traveled bike area? There's a lot of bikes drive through there? I mean, it's
I
pretty
see a lot of
aggressive.
bikes, but everybody's kind of going every which way. It's
Yeah.
just like the ones like on High, people are going in the bike lane in the correct direction, then you got other people coming at you the opposite way, so you got bikes going both ways on a one way. And I just see that if you had bikes in this area in Wisconsin, that would just be like a free-for-all too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the thought I'm sure with the bike and pedestrian plan, and then with, you know, how they built it, that was exactly the thought, was to connect, you know, the trails here in the Wyowash. So the trail coming from the senior center here, the Riverwalk, and then, you know, on the other side of the bridge, the Riverwalk too, to connect those, you know, so to connect the trails basically, which, you know, those are your options. You can either, you know, you can put the bike lanes here, which is what that was built for, or, you know, you can still take the sidewalk. But that was the thought, to connect those over to Algoma and High, where there's the bike lanes, and then you can, you know, it's pretty good route that way. I can get over to the side. It's the same thing over on this side. They have those curb cutouts that connect to the street, if I can get up there. There's one like right here, and there's one over there.
It's nice because you can go under the bridge too if you're crossing, you don't have to cross the traffic either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really like that, where they go under the bridge there. That's nice.
I don't know.
If anything, it wouldn't be a lot of children driving their bikes over that, because I mean, it's mostly an adult
Could be
type
adults,
road.
mostly adults,
Adults, yeah.
yeah. say it's worth a try.
Cause that's part of their original plan to have that all connected and if
Right.
It's a grid
that
of
cripples their whole idea.
bicycle trail grid.
How wide is the sidewalk on either side of the bridge? Jim, is it standard? Is it-
You mean on the north or the south? I believe it's 5.
Either side, because the thought that was going through my head, obviously, depending on how wide it is, we could actually have two-way bike traffic and utilize one of those sidewalks for it, and leave the other side open for pedestrian foot traffic. And achieve the same goal without exposing those bikes to some of the other issues on the bridge.
I think part of it is
They could have
standard,
bike
but
for both.
Well, right, yeah. On one side, yeah, whichever one, because you can get easily, as was just
That'd be a better
noted.
solution.
Again, I just wanna make sure there's enough room, and yeah, you can sneak past each other, but again,
It
I
would be
just.
best on the
Really,
west side, wouldn't it?
North, south, east, and west get a little convoluted when you get to the river, depending on which way you're at.
Well, I mean.
But, yeah, I mean, I get what you're,
Because of the wheel walk and all that.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think you could do that because you have to, well, the sidewalk I'm pretty sure is 5 feet.
okay,
The trail, don't quote me on this, but I'm thinking the Riverwalk Trail is like 10 feet. But for ADA, you have to have 4-foot clearance. So if you put bikes going both ways, that would probably be a problem.
yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Again, I'm just gonna go back to, I think it's a bad idea to put a bike lane across a heavily traveled bridge.
and those few blocks on the north side are heavily trafficked too. You know, like I say, I do, bike and hike in that area on those trails not pretty frequently, and like I said, I wouldn't be comfortable, going down on a bike lane.
So clarify your position, Dan, are you suggesting it's a good idea to put a bike lane across?
No,
the
I don't.
bridge?
I don't think it is. Like I said,
Okay,
I
all right.
like I said, I take the sidewalk now rather than using the traffic lane.
Are bikes on the sidewalk safer than a bike lane? I guess that's kind of what it comes down to.
Well, I haven't really ran into
Both
problems
for
with
the bikers and
pedestrians,
the
but you can pretty much maneuver around somebody if you
Yeah.
encounter them on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Well, that was all discussed a few meetings ago anyway, as far as priority with pedestrian bikes, handicap, so on. Have your order of who's obeys what, who's first, who's second. And so it's basically that right now on the
So-
bridge, just like it is on some other streets.
Sure. Yeah, that's always a debate. It's, we're one of the only communities that allows bikes on sidewalks because then but yeah, I mean you could argue that either way. I mean, there's the argument out there that, bikes are safer on the street because you don't have the conflicts with pedestrians or driveways. Here there's not really the driveway issue, but if you're going through residential areas, cars backing out and might not see you. So it's, and they consider vehicles a form of transportation versus recreation. And when you start looking at it that way, then you tend to side more towards the bicycles on the street. But
Yeah, but you talk to bikers and you get a different opinion from a lot of them when they're on the street. And I think I'd rather be on the sidewalk.
Like
And-
if bike hits pedestrian,
And
both
just be
people live.
careful of the walkers. It gets dangerous.
Do we just put like signage on the bridge posts, like to encourage bicycles to drive on the sidewalks?
Bikes
Instead of
only,
the- Well, people gotta be able to walk on there too, but it's
Yeah.
just common courtesy to
Maybe
step
bike-
aside.
do it that way, bikes only.
Well, but that's what he was saying.
Yeah, you can't
You
do
can't, ADA, becomes an issue. Again, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah. Cause otherwise you're gonna, you could do it, but then you'd have to limit pedestrian traffic across the bridge, and I'm not sure we'd wanna do that either.
There's quite a bit of pedestrian.
Well, there is, I mean, not, again, I've seen more pedestrians than I have seen people on bikes going across the bridge, but still, I think, we gotta be respectful of both, so.
yeah, when they did the bike and pedestrian plan, I wasn't here at this time, but I've read it multiple times. There's there's 4 levels. There's no bike route, then there's signing a bike route, and then there's a share-o, which is the symbol on the road that says bikes may share the road, and then there's the bike lanes. So the bike lanes are considered the best for bikes and the most convenient, arguably safe. I guess that, like I said, you could debate that. So those are kind of the 4 options. This one was recommended as bike lanes with those cutouts, but there's other options too.
Just off the top of your head, what would such a sign say? Pedestrians, bicyclists, please use sidewalk. I don't know that I've ever seen anything.
Yeah, I don't think we
Like
could
that.
do anything like that. I mean, I guess if you wanted to do something like that and signal as bike route, we could sign it as a bike route. That's what I was trying to get at. I mean, you could sign it. That's the lowest of the 3 levels of bike facilities, but you could
But
sign.
force them onto the sidewalk?
It wouldn't force them on the
Well,
sidewalk.
no, but I mean, encourage them onto the sidewalk.
I mean, you could put, signs that say bike route that way. Like the other areas where we, like, say the West Haven neighborhood where we have bike route signs, but there's no share-os or painted facility on the street. Just kind of guides you in where the
And
bike
I
route
can
is.
appreciate that, but I think we may be shooting ourselves in the foot, because if we put them up and there's no clear indication, they're gonna wind up on the road anyway, which defeats the purpose. So we might be better off just relying on people's, as Dan said, common sense to,
Comfort level to drive.
yeah, to get to the sidewalk as opposed to try and get across the bridge.
I think you'd see a lot of instances where cars would crowd into the bike lane too. I have problems with that, like on Sawyer. Like you're in the traffic lane and somebody comes up on the bike lane, on the right of you, so it kind of puts you in a bad spot.
Where you almost feel like you gotta move over to the left.
Bad driver behavior.
Anyone else with comment, concern, question at this point? Going once? Going twice? All right. Ask that we call the roll on agenda 3.
Haas,
Aye.
Rousey,
What would be against it, right?
yes.
No.
Szynski,
No.
Weinschneider,
No,
Becker,
No.
Lost, 1, 4.
I think what I'll do with that then is, I guess it'll, if Bike and Ped still wants to support that, then it would go to council, and council would ultimately decide, because it would have a favorable recommendation from Bike and Ped, and then a negative recommendation from traffic review, and then it would ultimately be up to council. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there, just so you guys can follow it.
Which then brings us to staff statements, which includes council, boards, and commission study.
I was just gonna we don't have the results back yet, but just, so you're aware, I think you all received the survey, which has been since the last meeting. So there were a number of different, alternatives there, so hopefully everybody returned the survey. I know the city manager's office is then gonna compile the results and present those to council. Couple updates regards to that, so we'll kind of see where that goes. A couple of the, none of the proposals really necessarily involved eliminating traffic review or anything, so I think this will still be a board. It's more of whether we maybe consolidate park and utility with traffic review, if one of the ideas, which has some merit, and then we'll kind of see where those surveys come in. But then Gary Ross, who's on this board, he actually moved to town of Algoma, so based on our current regulations, he couldn't continue to serve on this board, so he had to resign based on his residency. That's one of the things I think that's also gonna be considered with the board and commission's study. So that's out there, if any should be consolidated, meet less, or if, residency needs to be a requirement for some of those boards. And so with his spot open, what I think we'll do is we'll leave that open for at least a month or so until we can find out what's gonna happen with that, because if there was any type of consolidation, you know, at least this way there would be a spot available if somebody had interest in serving, and, if any of the boards did get consolidated.
Anyone with questions for Mr. Collins on any of that? I have a few. I'm assuming whatever recommendation comes forward is gonna go before council from.
Yep.
I'm gonna take opportunity, Mr. Krause, to bend your ear. I can appreciate why a non-resident may want to sit on a number of city boards for various reasons, because there's obviously business concerns along Main Street, Oregon. We saw that today, although I believe Mr. Mugarauer is a city resident. So what I had been thinking after I'd actually filled out the survey a week or two back, again, I can appreciate why someone outside city resident would have an interest in serving. Is it possible to have, and again, this is where you come in, Mr. Krause, give some consideration to an ex officio member of city boards and commissions? Someone maybe that the chamber elects or, you know, wants to put as an ex officio member on any particular board. That way they've got a vested interest in the business community, and that way we don't wind up with, you know, a board that's heavy in, you know, town of Algoma residents, but make available one spot on every board for someone designated by either the bid or the chamber.
I think the thinking behind it was that a lot of the boards have a hard time filling the slots. And I could see maybe a bylaw or something going in there saying Oshkosh residents have first crack at it, and if we can't fill the position, maybe an outside resident could have that spot, you know.
But again, I don't think, I mean, and you could kill, again, to use the same analogy, you could kill two birds with one stone to have the chamber designate someone to fill that. Again, I don't see necessarily an issue with that, but then there's gotta be a sunset on it too. You can't leave that position open for extended periods of time to wait for someone to fill it. So, just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know about the
Ultimately.
chamber filling it. I mean, I could see maybe some group figuring that out. 'Cause,
Well-
I mean, you could have a lot of favoritism there.
Well, it doesn't need to be, and again, I just used the chamber as an example, but it could be any number of organizations. Rotary, you know, whatever the case may be.
And if there's a consolidation of some of the boards, maybe there's gonna be a lot of people that wanna get on them, and there won't be any.
True. I
Open.
mean, it's an evolving situation, but just my 2 cents on the issue. Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a few things. The first one is the parking by South Park during the events. We designated Osborne as the no parking. But I was at the Food Truck Friday, and there was a number of cars parked on Osborne. At the time, I didn't see any enforcement, not to say that none didn't occur while I wasn't at the event. And also then the head of the farm market was complaining about that, and they were saying, like, how does somebody know if it's a city council approved event? And then I noticed too, I was at the last farm market on Wednesday, and there were people parked up and down both sides of Georgia, and usually like they would put out those temporary no parking signs, and none of those were out. So I don't know if why they didn't have the no parking on Georgia at all. But and like I said, there's kind of questions about Osborne, like how do people know? But in my opinion, it should just be on the safe side and don't park there if it looks like there's a lot of stuff going on at the park, you know.
Yeah, I know that, you know, obviously people did get tickets, so that's where the complaint
Okay.
came from. So I haven't followed it real close, but I know from, you know, what I've heard from the Leathermans that there was, you know, a few people got ticketed and they were just wondering why, you know, the no parking was there, and we referred them back to, you know, traffic review and council considered that last year. So that ordinance has been in effect for almost a year now.
Yeah, that's what I told, because I was talking to them on Facebook about it, and I said I thought it was about a year, you know.
Right. So.
They actually, you know, they said they talked to the Parks Board, and the Parks Board didn't know anything about it either.
No, I know the Parks Administration was involved in it, because we discussed that, you know, when this came up last year. So it sounded like, I think they're okay with it. They just kind of wish they would have been noticed better, which, you know, we'll take that into account something like that comes up again. But and I think the council, approved events, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the farmer's market's a council-approved event. And that's
Like I said,
kind of-
anytime you see like a lot of activity at the park, I would be if I was going to park there, I would be on the safe side and
Right.
not park there.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing we have, by Titan Stadium, where there's no parking during Titan Stadium events. Well, it's going to be pretty obvious if there's an event there. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be looking to park there. So,
I was gonna say, look into the future, maybe you could take off parking on Georgia by the corner house on Osborne and Georgia. That's the only house, because there's the church and the park, obviously. Just for the corner house, because they can park on Osborne. Because like even if you have just like a picnic at the shelter, you got cars parked up and down. So like if you removed parking by that corner house on Georgia, it would improve your sight lines a lot, because otherwise you gotta like edge out there, because you got cars parked all the way up to that fire hydrant.
sure, we can take a look at that.
So I mean, I couldn't speculate on how many feet it is, but just basically that corner house, because they still have the option of parking on Osborne. And it's not really a problem at 12th, because there's not, people don't park as far down to those shelters there. But, if there's a thing at either of those two shelters, Georgia gets parked up and down. And it's not an event, a special event. So then the other thing I wanted to mention was, I've noticed it, and I've seen a lot of people complaining on Facebook about it, is like on Sawyer, people pass you on the right on the bike lane. And I've also had that on Taft. People said, it's been much more prevalent with the detour off of Oshkosh Ave, so there's more traffic on Sawyer, so people just, go around you in the bike lane. And like I said, I've had that problem where like I'm on Taft, I want to turn south onto Sawyer, and then somebody comes up along the right side of me, and I'm trying to turn right. And maybe you could check with some of your peers in other communities what they do in scenarios where you have bike lane and traffic, and then people, what they do to like, prohibit cars from going into the bike lane.
Yeah, it's probably, it sounds more like an enforcement issue. I know they haven't probably enforced that real hard yet, but I'll talk to the police department about that, because that's something, that they're probably, as we get more bike lanes, which we are now, they're gonna have to start probably enforcing that and educating motorists a little better about not driving in the bike lanes.
Yeah, because it's just an accident waiting to happen. Like I said, you're trying to turn right, and then somebody, comes up in your blind spot in the bike lane.
Sure. Yep.
Well, I mean, to that point, Dan, when you're making a right-hand turn and there's a bike lane to your right, you should move to the curb before you turn right. If you notice, the bike lane goes to a dashed white line as you approach intersections, which allows for that. And that's the point in that dashed line being there. But you still see people that make right-hand turns from 5 or 6 feet off the curb, which is the point you're trying to make, I think, which is that's a dangerous situation for that poor person in that bike lane. I tell people that's like trying to make a left turn from the right lane as you're going down the road in a car. You can't turn through another lane of traffic, and that's what that bike lane is at that point.
Other things similar.
It does become an education issue as well as an enforcement issue. I agree with you 100%.
After we've, all the years they've had that middle turn lane on Jackson, I still like get people making a left turn from one of the driving lanes,
Yeah.
instead of going into that
Yep.
turn lane.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of things happening that are just based on poor driver behavior. And how do you get control of it? Roads and cars have been improved greatly over the last 100 years, from mud roads to hard surface, and from hard rubber tires to other tires. We can look at all the improvements. But how do we keep the driver in line? And enforcement, yeah, is one thing, but how do you get at the education? I know we've both been involved, but it's a losing battle, and it's a reflection of road, to an extent, different levels of rage. Years ago, you could get yourself in trouble by honking the horn or letting somebody know you're upset, and they'd give you the hand gesture. Just, you know, now they come alongside and shoot you, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, it's a matter of road design, I think, that's gonna help.
I think a lot of people are on their cell phones too. And
Oh,
maybe
yes.
a better
I mean,
enforcement of,
You
Phone
know,
use.
accidents don't just happen, they're caused by driver error.
there's a lot more going on nowadays.
And we've gotta look at ways that we can curb driver error and contain it and control it. And until we do that, it's just gonna get worse. People, you could have all the driver education in the world, but it's a matter of upstairs here with the individual. And, we have to look at that, and I think maybe we can with the board here, how to deal with those things.
Yeah, one other thing I can mention is there's, in September, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee is going to be having a pedestrian safety event, and it is going to be at the roundabouts at 9th and Keller and Witzel and Keller. I think what they're planning on doing is, doing some pedestrian crossings through through both of those roundabouts in conjunction with OPD, maybe doing a little bit of driver education. And the intent is, it's September's Pedestrian Safety Month. They have the Bike Safety Month in May, so just to bring some more attention to the fact that there are pedestrians out there. And so kind of what you're getting at with the educating drivers, that's going to be one thing I know that's going to be coming up here in September.
Any information out there that's publicly available?
Yes, I believe it's on the city's website, but if not, I'll make sure it is out there. And I know that, I believe they put it on Facebook as well. But I'll double check. I don't know
So
that for
that's
a
in
fact.
September?
Yes. Yes, let me check real quick. I believe it's the 14th. No, might be. It is the 21st, and I believe it's going to be around 2:30 p.m. So they were just planning it about the time when school gets out. So I think it's going to be around 2:30 to 4, something like that, on Thursday, September 21st.
So are they, again, I don't want to dig too deep into the weeds on this, but are they planning on essentially running, as you said, pedestrians through that at the busiest time of the day to gauge driver behavior? And I mean, is there going to be enforcement tied into this?
Right. At that time, there's just going to be, they're going to do some pedestrian crossings. I don't believe they're going to do enforcement at that time. They're just going to do it to kind of make people aware that there are pedestrians out there.
Well, again, let me differentiate. I'm not suggesting, tickets get peeled
Oh, no.
left and right, but the friendly pull over and say, hey, do you know what you just did?
Right.
Do?
Yep.
Type of a situation?
I believe they're planning that, but I can't speak for PD.
Okay. If,
It would seem to fit though.
right, and again, that's why I brought it up. I just wanted to make sure we're coming at this at every angle possible to take advantage of it, if that's what they're gonna do. Because otherwise, all you're doing is educating the pedestrians and not the motorists, which,
Yeah, there's gonna be consequences. You're first after me.
anyone else? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Have a good evening.